I stepped through the door just after 7, the remnants of the pool still clinging to me, a damp reminder of the day, while the oppressive heat wrapped around my skin like a lingering regret. The hallway was thick with the scent of detergent, mingling with an unsettling metallic tang that lingered in the air, reminiscent of old keys or the ghostly remnants of bloodless wounds. My gym bag tumbled from my shoulder, hitting the parquet with a soft yet resonant thud that echoed in the stillness. I longed for the embrace of silence. After workouts, solitude enveloped me like a familiar shroud, a ritual that beckoned with its quiet embrace. Steam enveloped the room as the water cascaded down, a soothing embrace. A cup of tea, warm and fragrant, awaited on the counter, promising comfort. Outside, the world faded away, leaving only an hour of tranquil silence, a sanctuary for the soul. As I pivoted toward the kitchen, a murmur of voices reached my ears. It resonated through the air, a haunting melody that lingered long after the last note faded. Time stood still as I absorbed the cadence of words that had long faded from my memory. A more profound incarnation of the boys, brimming with confidence and a reckless abandon, their essence woven with the vibrant threads of youth, blissfully unaware of the boundaries that lay ahead. He loomed by the counter, his posture relaxed as he leaned against the fridge, a backpack resting at his feet, hinting at untold stories waiting to unfold. His appearance had changed since we last met, bathed in sunlight and chaotic. His arms, exposed and etched with the sun-kissed hues of a life lived outdoors, told tales of countless hours under the open sky. His grin spread wide as his eyes locked onto mine. "I'm staying for a while," he declared, his voice steady and unapologetic, as if this moment were nothing out of the ordinary. My husband turned around, his face aglow with a youthful pride that was impossible to ignore. "Did I neglect to share this with you?" The college buzzed with the sound of construction, a cacophony of hammers and drills echoing through the halls. I envisioned it as a thrilling adventure, reminiscent of the exhilarating times we once shared. A playful dot, the word, struck my chest with the weight of a stone. I managed to conjure a smile, yet an unsettling sensation crept over me, as if an intruder had slipped into my sanctuary without warning. He had shed the remnants of boyhood. The truth was unmistakably evident from the very start. His gaze held steady, unwavering, as it locked onto mine. They held on, their grip unyielding against the tempest that threatened to tear them apart. Excessive length. Excessively straightforward. I stepped into the shower, silence enveloping me like a heavy fog. The water surged with heat, yet I remained untouched by its warmth. My body moved with a chilling precision, as if guided by an unseen force. In a world where every drop holds a secret, the shimmering bottle of shampoo beckons with promises of transformation. Its vibrant colors swirl like a potion, hinting at the magic within. With each lather, the air fills with an intoxicating scent, transporting you to a realm where worries dissolve and confidence wanes. The journey begins with a single squeeze, unleashing a cascade of possibilities that will leave you breathless and renewed. Wash away the remnants of yesterday. A simple towel, yet it held the weight of countless stories within its fibers. But my thoughts were scattered like shards of glass, each one glinting with a different memory, a different fear, a different desire. I fought to push aside the haunting echo of his voice, dim and shadowy, unyielding, perhaps even entertained. I steeled my resolve, reminding myself not to let panic take hold. He would take refuge in the guest room for the night. He would be consumed by his tasks. He was merely passing through. As I crossed the threshold into the bedroom, a subtle tension hung in the air, and I found myself reaching for a different bra, an item long tucked away, delicate yet impractical for everyday wear, waiting for the moment it would once again embrace my form. Uncertainty clouded my mind, leaving me questioning for whom it was meant. He had always lingered in the shadows, a constant presence in the backdrop of life. In his childhood, he dashed through our halls with bare feet, indulged in ice cream that left his fingers sticky, and called me by a special nickname that only children knew. Yet now, he glided forward with a confidence that seemed foreign to the innocence of his youth. The years had etched their weight upon his shoulders. He carried himself with quiet confidence. His stance was commanding, stance bold and unwavering. unrestrained and free-spirited. His gaze pierced through me, a silent storm brewing in his eyes, neither with disrespect nor with innocence. That night, I found myself lying awake far longer than I had intended. My husband lay beside me, his soft snores filling the room with a rhythm that felt both familiar and oddly comforting in the stillness of the night. Yet, sleep eluded me. I leaned in, straining to catch every whisper that danced through the air. Footsteps echoed ominously down the dimly lit hallway, sending a shiver down my spine. In the realm of technology, a powerful force known as software weaves its intricate web, shaping the very fabric of our digital existence. Calculated. I rolled onto my back, my gaze fixed on the ceiling above, lost in thought. They moved silently past my door, paused, caught in a moment of uncertainty, and so the journey pressed on. I rose from my slumber and padded silently across the cool floor, my bare feet whispering against the surface as I made my way to the kitchen, thirst driving me forward like a secret mission. I swung open the fridge door, my hand reaching for a bottle of water that I had no real desire for. As I shut the door behind me, he stood there, waiting. He lingered in the doorway, half enshrouded in shadow, his hair still glistening from a recent shower, the fabric of his t-shirt clinging enticingly to his chest. Silence enveloped us. His gaze lingered momentarily on my exposed legs. Pants were the last thing on my mind. A simple long tee, yet beneath it, the fabric felt unfamiliar against my skin. "Do you find yourself stirring from sleep in the dead of night?" he inquired, his voice dropping to a hushed whisper. "It is only when the house is filled with life that I speak." His smile returned, a flicker of warmth in the shadows. That same youthful essence cloaked in an air of age, something observing me with an unsettling intensity. "I'll do my best to keep my voice down. Your voice barely breaks the silence. I have the potential to become something extraordinary." He uttered it with such casualness, as if it held no weight at all. Yet his gaze remained steadfast, unwavering. I turned and walked past him in silence, the weight of his presence trailing behind me like an electric charge. As I slipped back into bed, I drew the sheet up to my throat, despite the warmth that enveloped the room. The following morning, I felt his gaze piercing through me from across the kitchen table, while I spread butter on a slice of toast. He held my gaze, unwavering, as if the world around us had faded away. My husband was lost in the glow of his phone, completely unaware of the world around him. I chewed deliberately, savoring each bite, then swallowed hard, my gaze dropping to my lap. A palpable tension hung in the air as the rules twisted and turned with alarming speed, leaving me in a state of unease. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was orchestrating this chaos from the shadows, but their identity remained a mystery, lurking just beyond my grasp. The morning unfolded like countless others, a serene warmth enveloping the world, yet beneath its tranquil surface lay an unsettling simplicity, hinting at the chaos to come. The morning unfolded like a delicate tapestry, where time felt both suspended and charged, each moment vibrating with an unspoken anticipation that lingered in the air. I glided through the kitchen, as I always did, my bare feet whispering against the cool floor, hair still glistening with moisture, pulling my robe tighter, as if seeking comfort in its embrace. The air was thick with a warm aroma of toast mingling with the sharp scent of citrus cleaner, while outside, the sky loomed heavy and golden, drenched in sunlight. He lounged at the kitchen table, legs splayed casually, reclining in the chair with a carefree ease that only youth can truly embrace, calm and unyielding. His attire reflected a quiet, unassuming demeanor, the sleeves pushed up to reveal the taut lines of his forearms, a silent testament to strength and determination. He was lost in the glow of his phone, fingers dancing over the screen, but as I stepped inside, his eyes lifted, holding my gaze with an intensity that stretched the boundaries of mere courtesy. His lips curled into a smile, a glimmer of intrigue dancing in his eyes. I did not. Amidst the facade of normalcy, an unsettling tension lurked just beneath the surface. From the depths of the office down the hall, my husband's voice reverberated, a hint of urgency lacing his words as he called out for his glasses. I replied without shifting my gaze, my voice unwavering. masking the tremor that had rippled through me at that piercing glance. I immersed myself in a whirlwind of activity. The vibrant colors of fruit, the warm scent of freshly baked bread, and the steady hum of the refrigerator filled the air. My fingers craved the comfort of something solid to grasp, to sever, to purge the remnants of chaos. He approached silently, his presence heavy with unspoken words. Without a glance, he lifted the full bag from my grasp, as if it were a mere trifle, and strode to the counter, leaving me in a swirl of confusion and intrigue. But I felt the electric spark as his arm brushed against mine. Neither fully intentional nor completely by chance, we found ourselves making our way to the grocery store, side by side. He spoke with a nonchalance that belied the urgency beneath, claiming he needed fresh air, a chance to stretch his legs and escape the confines of the moment. My husband remained engrossed in his screen, a fleeting smile gracing his lips as he waved us away, oblivious to the world around him. It was an unanticipated adventure, yet an electric awareness coursed through me, heightening every sensation and thought. I became acutely aware of my stance, the subtle shift as I positioned my sunglasses, the deliberate crossing of my arms. He strode forward with an air of assurance, his hands tucked deep into his pockets, recounting tales of college renovations, grumbling about professors who irked him, and sharing snippets of music that were foreign to me. I was only half present, my mind captivated by the way he moved, the soft rhythm of his footsteps echoing in perfect harmony with my own. I fought against the tide of emotions, determined to remain untouched. Yet, I truly was, and I loathed the awareness it forced upon me. As I approached the checkout, his hand shot out, seizing the bag just inches from my grasp. His hand brushed against mine once more, sending a jolt of electricity through the air between us. Once more, it was not by choice. Yet again, there lingered a shadow of guilt. As I stepped back into the familiar embrace of home, I swung open the pantry door, the scent of forgotten spices wafting out, while he busied himself with the unpacking, oblivious to the secrets hidden within those shelves. A palpable tension hung in the air, slowly morphing into something more charged and electric. It erupted from within, breaking the silence that had long held it captive. I sensed it lingering in the air, fragile and delicate, like the thinnest sheet of glass separating us. It's transparent, revealing what lies beyond, yet a single abrupt movement could shatter its fragile surface. And then, as if the air itself had shifted, he spoke the words, "Your shoulders are truly stunning." I pivoted to face him, my eyes wide and unblinking, as if the words had yet to register in my mind. Yet, I had. He remained absorbed in his task, pouring cereal into a bowl, as if it were merely another fleeting thought, lost in the rhythm of the mundane. He remained stoic, his expression unyielding, devoid of laughter, or a hint of color in his cheeks. He uttered the words, and the air thickened with tension, as if it were an undeniable truth. It was a thought that had simmered in his mind for far too long, and now, he chose to let it escape into the world, swirling and rising like steam into the cool air. Silence enveloped me, a heavy shroud that stifled any words that threatened to escape. I was unable to do it. I stepped out of the room, not out of anger, but from the uncertainty that gripped me. I could feel the weight of my emotions, and I knew that staying would lead me down a path I wasn't ready to face. In the dim light of the bedroom, I lingered before the wardrobe, time slipping away as I hesitated, caught in a moment that felt heavier than it should. My fingers lingered over the hangers, brushing against the delicate lace and soft cotton, vibrant hues that had remained untouched for months. My hand froze as it brushed against something pale and silky, its subtle trim beckoning with an alluring whisper. Too elegant for mere existence, too gentle for slumber. I slipped into it, the decision instinctive, yet the reason behind it lingered in the shadows of my mind, undeniable and clear. As I descended the stairs, I found him by the window, cradling a steaming cup of coffee in his hands. He remained oblivious to my presence as I stepped inside. I slipped silently behind him, my fingers stretching toward the mug that rested tantalizingly close to his. Our hands brushed against each other, a fleeting spark igniting the air between us. Neither of us dared to break the stillness that enveloped us. His gaze lingered on me, deliberate and unhurried. A palpable tension hung in the air, a whisper of change that sent shivers down my spine, warning me of the impending shift that loomed just beyond the horizon. He moved closer, And in an instant, before words could form on my lips or I could draw a single breath, the space between us vanished. One breath, then none. The urgency was absent. It lacked any hint of aggression. It was eerily still. I know. His lips grazed mine. A whisper of assurance, as if he sensed deep down that I would let him cross that line. It was gentle yet deliberate, and the absence of doubt rendered it more perilous than anything else imaginable. There was an eerie calmness in the air. No claim has been made, only a question. My surrender spoke volumes, an answer in itself. He took a step back, hesitation flickering in his eyes. Silence enveloped the air, heavy and unyielding. I turned and stepped away, the weight of my decision heavy in the air. I stood my ground. The door swung shut behind me, left ajar in my haste. Upstairs, I perched on the edge of the bed, my gaze fixed on the floor, lost in thought for what seemed like an eternity. The warmth lingered on my lips, a vivid reminder of what had just transpired. My fingertips quivered ever so slightly, yet I pressed them firmly against my thighs, fighting to maintain my composure. A nameless sensation stirred within me, elusive and haunting. Shame lingered in the shadows, but beneath it stirred something perilously akin to awakening. As the day faded into night, my husband leaned in, his lips brushing against mine in a tender kiss. I felt a warmth spread through me as I returned the gesture, sealing our connection in the quiet darkness. With a swift and seamless motion, silently, my mind wandered to another time, reliving a moment that felt both distant and vivid. A unique sensation. My gaze faltered, unable to meet his eyes. As I lay in bed that night, my eyes fixated on the narrow crack of the door. I watched the hallway, every shadow and whisper of movement, igniting a sense of anticipation. The darkness enveloped everything, a thick shroud that swallowed the light whole. Stillness enveloped the air, yet a part of me remained on edge, anticipating the echo of footsteps once more. The bracelet was delicate, its tiny form holding an air of mystery. Fragile, and not for me, it rested in the heart of the box, exuding an aura of reverence. A delicate chain of gold, adorned with a tiny heart-shaped charm, captured the morning light, scattering it across the countertop in shimmering flashes. My husband stood beside me, extending the box with a comforting familiarity, as if he were presenting a steaming cup of tea on a chilly evening. The memory of his hand grazing my elbow lingers, a fleeting touch that ignites a whirlwind of emotions within me. His face broke into a smile, authentic, filled with a sense of accomplishment. Perhaps it holds a touch of romance. "I discovered this in your car," he said, his voice low and filled with intrigue. "I wondered if it had slipped your mind." A fleeting moment hung in the air, imperceptible to him, before my hand moved forward and grasped it. My gaze locked onto the bracelet, unyielding and unblinking. My mind raced to untangle the threads of time and the chaos of objects around me. It was a bracelet unlike any I had ever encountered. I had definitely never purchased it. The car sat silently in the driveway, a forgotten relic of journeys past, sealed tight. Yet, it wasn't always my hand that guided the course. I expressed my gratitude, my voice trembling slightly, while my fingers betrayed my anxiety, clumsily struggling with the clasp. He guided my hands as I slipped it on, the fabric cool against my skin. His hands, warm and familiar, held a secret, unknowingly complicit in the unfolding drama. A smile crept across my face, excessively broad, overly rehearsed. A smile that had long been buried within me, waiting for the right moment to resurface. He pressed his lips gently against my cheek, a fleeting moment of warmth, before he slipped away into the bustling world of his Saturday errands. In the dim light of the kitchen, I found myself standing solitary, my gaze fixed on the bracelet that now adorned my wrist, its presence both haunting and captivating. The charm danced with each movement of my arm, thrumming like a heartbeat. It felt more like a curse than a blessing. It resonated like a whispered secret, heavy with the weight of truth. This was his purchase. He is not my husband. He stood there, a figure shrouded in mystery, drawing the gaze of all who passed. His presence was magnetic, a silent promise of untold stories waiting to unfold. As darkness enveloped the world outside, a fleeting memory flickered in my mind. My bag, carelessly abandoned on the couch after my late-night stroll. I had stepped away to freshen up, and he was the final figure lingering in the shadows of the staircase. He had to have slipped the box into the bag. In a twist of fate that defied the ordinary, my husband stumbled upon it before I ever had the chance. A whirlwind of emotions surged within me, caught between the urge to laugh and the instinct to panic. A cruel irony hung in the air, thick and palpable. My husband, a reluctant bearer of secrets, caught in a game he never knew he was part of. As I crossed the threshold and emerged onto the back patio, the world around me seemed to hold its breath. The sun hung high in the sky, its relentless rays turning the tiles into a scorching expanse, too blistering for bare feet to tread upon. As I lingered in the cool embrace of the ivy's shade, the gentle breeze danced through my hair, whispering secrets of the world beyond. It was in that moment that I caught sight of him. He perched on the low brick wall at the garden's edge, one foot planted firmly on the ground while the other rhythmically tapped against the weathered bricks, lost in thought. A book lay abandoned on his knee, its pages untouched and secrets waiting to be unveiled. His gaze was fixed upon me. They kept their gaze steady, refusing to let their eyes wander to the bracelet, even though I was certain he had noticed it. Silence enveloped us. It was unnecessary. The gold lay between us, a burden far greater than any spoken word could convey. He rose gradually, arching his back like a feline, and approached me with a deliberate grace. Slow down. Not by design, only near enough to sense his presence electrify the atmosphere. Yet, silence enveloped him, words trapped within the confines of his mind. He strode by, his arm grazing mine, sending a jolt through me as he passed. It was a feather-like caress, fleeting connection. Yet, the echo of his lips remained, a haunting reminder from days past, still pressed against my own. In that moment, the unspoken understanding resonated with a power that eclipsed any words he might have uttered. Once back inside, I lost myself in a flurry of trivial activities. I meticulously rearranged the fruit bowl, folded fresh towels with precision, and found myself gazing into the depths of my closet for far too long, only to emerge and change my outfit without a single reason to do so. I wasn't putting on a costume, not in the traditional sense, but every detail mattered to me. A delicate neckline that beckons intrigue, exposed skin glistening under the sun. The bracelet clung to my wrist, radiating an unexpected warmth, as if it were alive, responding to the pulse of my skin. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the room, my husband walked in, bags of groceries in hand. He looked at me with a spark of excitement and shared the news. We had been invited to a dinner next week, a gathering at my friend's secluded country house, where the air buzzed with anticipation and the promise of unforgettable moments lingered in the twilight. His mother's. The irony wrapped around her like a thick fog, pressing down with an unbearable weight. I nodded, letting out the right sounds, but my mind was elsewhere, envisioning the oppressive walls of that house closing in around me. The conversations I would have to pretend to engage in, the furtive glances I would need to evade. As dusk settled, I stood by the window, my gaze fixed on him as he strode through the garden, phone pressed to his ear, his movements restless and charged with an unspoken tension. Echoes of laughter filled the air. At ease, a stranger among the crowd. Yet, the moment his eyes met mine, I could sense that undeniable shift in the air. The unspoken tension lingered in the air, thick and palpable, as he had yet to utter a single word of apology for the bracelet. For it was never a mistake. Every move had been calculated, every action deliberate. Perhaps it was all part of a larger plan, or perhaps reckless. The air crackled with an unspoken tension, a palpable shift in the distance that now lay between us, free from the shackles of doubt. The air was electric, pulsating with an energy that felt foreign, heavy with the presence of a gift that had no rightful place in this home. As darkness enveloped the room, I prepared for sleep, my fingers deftly unfastening the clasp of the bracelet before placing it carefully on my nightstand. My gaze lingered on it, the shadows deepening around me, before I finally flicked the switch and plunged into darkness. The room enveloped itself in an unsettling darkness, the faint light from the cracked door barely piercing the heavy shadows. The air thickened around me, a palpable tension that hinted at the brewing storm I was utterly unprepared to face. From afar, the sound of his bedroom door creaked open, then shut with a soft thud, echoing through the stillness, gently. No footsteps trailed behind me, nor did I anticipate them. Not just yet. Yet, deep within me, a profound certainty stirred, whispering that from this moment on, nothing would unfold by mere chance. The journey to her house stretched on, allowing silence to weave itself into the fabric of our shared space. My husband hummed softly to the rhythm of the radio, while I gazed out the window, captivated by the trees that rushed by, their leaves a swirling tapestry of early autumn golds and weary greens. It was a seemingly ordinary midweek day when the invitation slipped through the door, its presence igniting a spark of intrigue. It was an annual dinner, she declared. A time-honored ritual, laid back. Gather the boys, let them reconnect. My husband wore a satisfied smile. He reveled in the haunting echoes of the past that these events stirred within him. A tempest raged within me. A fierce turmoil ignited the moment her name crossed my ears. She was the one who brought him into the world, my closest companion through the years. We had woven our lives together in ways that felt unbreakable. I cradled him in my arms as a fragile infant, carefully crafting birthday cards filled with love and hope for his future. Now, I found it nearly impossible to meet her gaze, as a searing shame coiled tightly around my ribs, igniting a fire of discomfort within me. The house lay hidden at the end of a winding gravel path, enveloped by towering hedges and the faint, alluring scent of smoke wafting from a distant chimney. It appeared unchanged, a haunting echo of its former self, faded and weathered. A flicker of pride ignited within. As she did, she welcomed us at the door, her smile radiant and inviting. With a kiss on each cheek, she enveloped me in her embrace, a warmth and vitality that seemed to flow effortlessly from her very being. I embraced her, my grip rigid and unyielding. He stood in the shadows waiting, stepping out from the shadowy embrace of the back patio. A bottle of wine glinted in one hand, while the other shielded eyes from the blazing sun with dark sunglasses. His hair clung to his forehead, damp and glistening, as if he had just emerged from a steamy shower, droplets still clinging to the strands like secrets waiting to be uncovered. He embraced his mother tightly, then turned to my husband, clapping him on the back with a grin that lingered just a heartbeat too long. Then his gaze locked onto mine. Silence enveloped the air, heavy and thick, as if the world held its breath, waiting for something to break the stillness. Silence lingered, devoid of any trace of joy, a simple nod, yet it carried the weight of unspoken words and hidden intentions. A fleeting spark of familiarity ignited within the depths of the mind. My heart thudded once, a deep, resonant beat, before settling back into its cautious rhythm. The evening unfurled with a familiar rhythm, each moment steeped in anticipation. Chilled glasses clinked softly on the weathered porch, the sun dipping low in the sky, casting long shadows that danced with the evening breeze. The sound of laughter echoed through the air, ricocheting off the walls like a joyful melody. Ancient tales, jokes linger in the shadows of memory, half-remembered and elusive. Epic tales of unforgettable high school nights, where every moment is larger than life. I found myself seated between my husband and a woman who flickered in my memory like a distant star, her presence both familiar and strange. Occasionally I sensed his eyes on me, a silent weight that stirred something deep within. In a flash, a whisper of air, featherlight, danced along the nape of my neck, always lingering in that precarious balance, too fleeting to validate yet too persistent to dismiss. The clamor of dinner filled the air, a cacophony of voices and laughter echoing through the room. The wine cascaded like a crimson river, while her cooking enveloped the senses in a tapestry of richness and indulgence, as decadent as the finest dreams. Yet, I scarcely savored a single flavor. The food disintegrated in my mouth, a tasteless imitation of sustenance, leaving a dry, lifeless residue that clung to my tongue. My gaze locked onto the glass before me, droplets of condensation sliding down its surface, mirroring the shiver that danced along my spine. Once dessert was savored, the crowd spilled outside once more, drawn by the allure of the night air. A flickering flame danced in the backyard pit, drawing everyone in like moths to a glowing beacon. They huddled together, wrapped in cozy blankets, clutching steaming mugs that released wisps of warmth into the cool night air. I lingered in the shadows, feigning the task of clearing dishes. He emerged from the shadows 10 minutes later, his feet bare against the cool earth, an armful of wood cradled tightly against his chest, ready to breathe life into the flickering flames. In the dim light of the kitchen, we found ourselves alone for the first time that evening, the air thick with unspoken tension. He set the logs down beside the fireplace, then stood tall, a sense of purpose radiating from him. I stood at the sink, the plate in my hands, the water now a chilling reminder of time slipping away. "I didn't think you'd wear it," he murmured, his gaze fixed on my wrist. It dawned on me only later that I'd slipped the bracelet back onto my wrist. I twisted the handle, silencing the rush of water as it ceased its relentless flow. "You kept it after all," he said, his voice laced with disbelief. Silence enveloped me, a heavy shroud that stifled any words that threatened to escape. The silence between us took on a life of its own, weaving through the floorboards and creeping into the very cracks of the walls. He edged forward, the air thick with tension, just the right distance, teetering on the edge of comfort. His voice dropped to a whisper, teetering on the edge of mischief and malice. Would she remember it? That evening, our eyes locked for the very first time. They carried themselves with a quiet humility. Only heat, a storm of frustration brewed within, dark and relentless. A lurking menace, silent and poised, waits just beneath the surface, ready to strike. She would never believe it, I insisted. Not a soul would dare. "Exactly," he replied, his voice steady and unwavering. As he strode by, his fingers brushed the surface of the counter, leaving a trail of unspoken tension in the air. He kept his distance, a barrier between us that felt unbreakable. He moved forward, leaving a trail of awareness in his wake. Outside, the fire flickered, casting a warm golden glow that danced across the faces of everyone gathered. He slipped into the circle, collapsing onto a lawn chair next to one of the younger cousins, laughter spilling from his lips over a joke I couldn't quite catch. My husband beckoned me with a gentle gesture, the seat beside him an open invitation, a promise of warmth and connection. I sat, cocooned in the blanket, clutching my cup of cider, its flavor hauntingly reminiscent of ash. He lounged across from me, legs sprawled out, head thrown back toward the sky as if gravity had forgotten him. Yet, beneath the blanket, his knee brushed against mine, igniting a spark of tension in the air. Only by a hair's breadth, a solitary beacon flickered in the enveloping shadows. It lurked in the shadows unseen by all. Not a single soul was aware. And yet, it was the sole sensation that coursed through me. As the last of the guests trickled out and the flames flickered dimly, my husband leaned in close, his voice barely above a whisper, suggesting we linger a little longer to embrace the night. The hour was late, shadows creeping in as darkness enveloped the world. Her house was filled with an abundance of rooms, each holding secrets waiting to be uncovered. Everyone else had taken the plunge. I gave a slow, deliberate nod. It all clicked into place, a revelation that felt both inevitable and profound. Everything had always fallen into place. From the exterior, they led us up the creaking staircase to the guest room, where shadows danced in the dim light. A secluded nook, shrouded in the whispers of time, where faded curtains flutter like ghosts and a mattress, unyielding and cold, holds secrets of restless nights. My husband succumbed to sleep within moments, his breaths deep and resonant in the stillness of the night. One arm sprawled across the blanket, a silent testament to the stillness of the moment. I perched by the window, the soft murmur of voices wafting in from the porch, wrapping around me like a whispering secret. In that moment he came into view, beyond the confines of walls. In solitude, the smoke curled around him, each exhale a whisper of his thoughts, drifting into the night like secrets lost to the wind. He stood there, collar askew, exhaustion lining his posture, hinting at a story waiting to unfold. Illuminated by the glow of the porch light, he gazed up at the house, and for a fleeting moment, I was convinced our eyes locked in an unspoken connection. Yet, he remained still, his hand unmoving. stood frozen in place. He remained frozen in place, a statue caught in a moment of uncertainty. Suspense hung in the air, thick and palpable as time stretched endlessly. The silence was deafening, each second ticking by like a heartbeat echoing in the void. Waiting. I remained utterly still, yet I left the curtains wide open. The stairs groaned under my bare feet as I descended, each step a careful whisper in the stillness, like a child tiptoeing into forbidden territory. A palpable tension hung in the air of the house, a silent harbinger of change. The silence was deafening. It hung in the air, thick with an electric tension that foreshadowed the impending storm or the sting of treachery. My husband lay peacefully asleep upstairs, curled on his side, blissfully unaware that I had slipped away from the warmth of our bed. He would linger in that state for hours, lost in the depths of his thoughts. He always succumbed to it after wine. The hallway downstairs lay shrouded in shadows, illuminated solely by the faint, flickering glow of a nightlight that flickered ominously from the wall. It was likely her, ever watchful, always prioritizing comfort above all else. The kitchen lay shrouded in darkness, the light extinguished, yet the back door stood ajar, a silent invitation to the unknown. I approached it, irresistibly pulled by an unnamed force, the quiet urgency of unresolved tension guiding my steps. He stood outside, his back pressed against the porch railing, the final ember of his cigarette flickering momentarily in the shadows before he cast it aside into the night. He remained utterly still as the door creaked open, his gaze fixed ahead, unyielding and unbothered. I stepped outside, the fabric of my robe clinging to me as I tightened it, even though the night wrapped around me with a warm embrace. We lingered in that moment, words unspoken, enveloped in a silence that pulsed with unexpressed emotions. Then he spoke, his gaze fixed elsewhere. "I thought you weren't coming down." "I hadn't intended to," I replied. Yet we remained averted, never daring to meet each other's gaze. The house behind us lay in a deep slumber, shrouded in silence and shadows. In the depths of the night, crickets stirred, their soft chirps weaving a delicate tapestry of sound that cloaked the darkness, like loyal accomplices in a secretive dance. The grass exuded a damp, sweet aroma, while the air was thick with the intoxicating blend of wood smoke and salt. I should have turned back, should have stepped through that door once more. Good night should have been my parting word, a simple farewell before I turned away into the shadows. Instead, I found myself inching closer, almost unconsciously, as if drawn by an unseen force, just enough to keep the tension alive, to linger in the shadows of uncertainty. Warmth radiated from his skin, a palpable presence that drew her in, while the steady rhythm of his breath echoed in the stillness around them. At last, he shifted his gaze in my direction. His expression was a mask of inscrutability, neither eager nor smug, but radiating an undeniable certainty. "I'm not trying to hurt anyone," he insisted, his voice trembling with a mix of desperation and resolve. A soft laugh escaped me, not bitter, not mocking, but gentle, like a breath released after being held too long. "It feels like nothing holds significance anymore." In that moment, he grasped my hand with a fierce certainty, devoid of any pretense or formality. His palm was coarser than I had imagined, radiating warmth, undeniably tangible. I remained rooted in place. Time stretched, a heartbeat lingering, and then we surged forward. The guest house loomed across the backyard, an old detached studio once alive with her father's creative spirit. Now, it stood as a silent shell, holding only a futon and forgotten storage boxes, whispering secrets of the past. We walked there together, slowly, as if we had already leaped from the edge, suspended in time, witnessing our descent unfold in agonizing detail. With a swift turn of the key, he unlocked the door and stepped aside, inviting me into the unknown. The air was thick with the lingering scent of dust, intertwined with a sharp hint of lemon polish, evoking a sense of forgotten stories waiting to be uncovered. A solitary lamp cast a feeble glow in the shadowy corner, its light struggling against the encroaching darkness. Books piled high against the wall, cozy throw blankets draped casually, and a small desk standing sentinel in the midst of it all. I stood there, a whirlwind of uncertainty swirling within me, my hands hovering awkwardly, searching for a place to land. He brushed by me, placing his phone on the table before pivoting to face me. Foreboding settled in my bones, a whisper of inevitability that I sensed long before the moment arrived. For days it unfolded in fleeting glances and heavy silences, in moments that carried an undeniable weight, forever tainted by the unspoken truths lurking beneath the surface. But this time, it was more than a mere glance or a fleeting brush of skin. It was a kiss, unlike the first. No hesitation, no uncertainty, just a fierce certainty that ignited the air around them. This one carried a heavy significance, a purposeful intent. It moved with a deliberate pace, exuding confidence rather than hesitation. I felt the warmth of his presence before he moved, drawing me in, and I surrendered without a fight. I found myself unable to do it. My pulse betrayed me, hammering louder than reason before my mind could even catch up. I pressed my lips against his, surrendering completely to the moment. Every fiber of my being, the dormant fragments that had slumbered for years, the pieces dulled by the monotony of routine, the constraints of politeness, and the weight of duty, surged to life in a breathtaking awakening. His lips pressed against mine, warmth radiating from his breath as it brushed my cheek, and in that moment, I was lost to the notions of right and wrong. It was nothing but the intoxicating flavor of him. It was the sensation of his body, warm and solid, pressing against mine that consumed my thoughts. Suddenly, the power flickered. A low, ominous hum reverberated through the walls. The unsettling sound of a fuse igniting, crackling with anticipation. We separated just enough to feel the rush of breath between us, our foreheads nearly brushing, the tension crackling in the air. And then darkness enveloped everything, swallowing the last remnants of light. We lingered in the shadows, my eyes slowly acclimating to the silhouette before me, a form I had come to recognize through the brush of my fingertips rather than the clarity of vision. We stood frozen, caught in a moment that felt like an eternity. Time slipped away as we remained there, lost in the moment. Moments ticked by, decades. The silence enveloped us, a heavy blanket of anticipation. And then I whispered, the reason lost to the shadows of my mind. We must return. His voice dripped with a husky intensity. I understand, yet neither of us dared to budge. As we stepped out of the studio, the sky began to transform. The first whispers of dawn, painting the horizon with a soft, ethereal glow. The world lay still, untouched, as the first light of dawn crept in, and the birds remained silent, holding their breath in the quiet of the morning. We traversed the grass in silence, each step heavy with unspoken words. Silence enveloped the room, thick and palpable, as unspoken words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Silence hung heavy in the air, devoid of apologies or the feeble attempts at humor that might have broken the tension. It was a silent acknowledgement of a moment that had slipped through our fingers, forever lost and irretrievable. As I quietly entered the guest room, I made sure not to disturb my husband, the stillness of the night wrapping around me like a shroud. Slipped beneath the sheets, cloaked in the illusion that nothing had shifted in the world outside. Yet, the imprint of his touch lingered on my skin, a haunting reminder of what once was. My lips still buzzed with a lingering sensation. The night air clung to my clothes, wood smoke and autumn chill. By dawn, he would vanish, retreating to campus, slipping back into the facade of normalcy he so desperately clung to. And I would remain here, anchored in this moment. As I folded the laundry, the soft fabric slipping through my fingers, I paused to answer emails, the glow of the screen illuminating my focused expression. Each time my husband entered the room, a warm smile gracing his face, I would lean in to plant a gentle kiss on his cheek, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee lingering in the air, a sweet reminder of our shared moments. But now, a revelation coursed through me. It was a truth that clawed at the edges of my mind, an unsettling revelation that refused to fade away. I would bide my time for the next moment to come. And I felt it deep within me. He would too. The days that followed melded into one another, heavy with a silence that suffocated rather than comforted. pressing down like oppressive heat on skin, gasping for air. The next morning, we made our way home in silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavily between us. My husband radiated joy, invigorated by the crisp countryside air, his laughter echoing as he recounted the same old jokes, each retelling more delightful than the last. I responded with subtle nods and fleeting smiles, embodying the delicate dance of a wife who had enjoyed restful slumber, savored delicious meals, and held on to nothing but the lingering aroma of wood smoke and the echoes of laughter. That day, I steered clear of mirrors. Not because I lacked the courage to confront my own reflection, but because I was unwilling to do so. He remained silent, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavily in the air, slipped back into the rhythm of the house, an unyielding presence, like a piece of furniture you had long since learned to navigate around. He arrived like a whisper in the night, only to vanish just as swiftly, leaving behind a shroud of mystery. Like the hound of fraud of mystery. With headphones draped around his neck, his shirt bore the charming marks of a life lived in motion, while his hair, artfully tousled, seemed to defy the very notion of perfection. He had fallen into a deep silence. They remained vigilant, their gaze unwavering, yet silence enveloped them like a shroud. It brushed against the skin, tantalizingly close, yet it never paused. She brewed the coffee just the way I loved it, the rich aroma filling the air, but I slipped away before I could savor that first comforting sip. But that silence, what does it hold? It was not mere avoidance. A promise lingered in the shadows, waiting for its moment to unfold, a boundary that neither of us dared to approach once more. Not just yet. 2 nights later, my husband unveiled a surprise that would change everything. On that fateful Tuesday, the air was thick with anticipation, unremarkable in every discernible aspect. The aroma of dried herbs filled the air as I stood in the kitchen, meticulously rearranging the spice rack, each jar a small treasure waiting to be discovered, not out of necessity, but because my hands craved a mission. The door creaked open, and he stepped inside, a bouquet of vibrant flowers clutched tightly in his hands, not from a store, but unmistakably gathered by hand, flawed, minuscule. The air was thick with an intoxicating aroma. Lavender danced in the air, mingling with the sharp, refreshing scent of eucalyptus, while a solitary sprig of rosemary stood sentinel, its earthy aroma weaving through the fragrant tapestry. Suspicion surged through me like a dark tide. Then came the suffocating weight of guilt. He offered a shy smile, a hint of vulnerability in his eyes. I envisioned a cozy dinner unfolding right here, where the ambience wraps around us like a warm embrace. Only the two of us. It was not a day marked by celebration. This is not a birthday. Nothing apparent to explain it. And perhaps that was the most heart-wrenching moment of all. The endeavor pulsed with the urgency of a rescue mission. Even he couldn't pinpoint the reason. Without hesitation, I nodded in agreement. With a flourish, I laid the table, draping the cloth napkins with care, and retrieved the wine we had been saving, its promise of celebration lingering in the air. He unleashed the haunting melodies of jazz from a playlist that time had left behind, each note echoing with the weight of memories long buried. The speakers emitted a faint hiss, a ghostly whisper from their long neglect. The dinner was a delightful experience, each bite bursting with flavor and warmth, leaving a lingering satisfaction that wrapped around the evening like a cozy blanket. He had requested it, untouched by the flames of a kitchen, and endeavored to arrange it on the plate as if it had emerged from his own hands. I feigned ignorance, my heart racing beneath the surface. I surrendered to his touch as he poured the wine, the rich liquid swirling in the glass, promising secrets yet to be unveiled. I inquired about the nature of his work, eager to uncover the depths of his craft. He leaned in, his gaze piercing as he inquired about the pool, my skin, and if I had been indulging in more moisturizing rituals of late, something he insisted he had observed. A smile crept across my face. I found myself laughing at all the right moments. Yet, beneath the surface, there lingered a profound ache of something lost, a haunting sense of misplacement that tugged at the very core of existence. His hand stretched out toward mine, bridging the distance between us across the table. I offered it freely. The air was thick with warmth, wrapping around everything like a soft embrace. Known and recognized, a sense of belonging lingers in the air. I lingered in anticipation, yearning for the embrace of comfort. All I sensed was the stark contrast. He leaned in, his fingers brushing against my cheek with a feather-light touch, before his lips met mine in a soft, lingering kiss. I shut my eyes, surrendering to the darkness that enveloped me. The motion was soft and soothing, like a whisper in the night. Proceed with caution, the kiss of a desperate heart, reaching out in the shadows of uncertainty, struggling to recall the essence of our former selves. He was piecing together a puzzle, unaware that it had shattered into countless fragments. I kissed him in return. Yet, deep within, my body understood. Understood the distinction. Understood the temperature. Felt the pressure. Sensed the rhythm. Understood the realms where longing thrived, and where it faded into shadows. As darkness enveloped the world outside, he appeared before me, shrouded in mystery. I surrendered to him. I surrendered to his touch. I surrendered to his touch, allowing his hands to roam over the familiar contours of my body, a territory he had navigated for years. The body that had once surged with urgency, with deep appreciation. With deep appreciation, I surrendered to the soft murmur of my name on his lips. I allowed him to take a shot at it, yet I found myself unable to meet his gaze. Never. The sheets pressed down on me, a heavy shroud that concealed my restless thoughts, crushed beneath his presence. As the moment faded, I leaned in, pressing a soft kiss on his shoulder before slipping away, seeking refuge in the bathroom. The mirror remained unyielding. I gazed into my reflection, as if examining the features of a stranger staring back at me. The warm glow of flesh, a delicate trace of mascara lingered, whispering secrets of a night spent in shadows. The mark near my collarbone was a secret I desperately wished he hadn't seen. I twisted the faucet, and the icy water cascaded over my wrists, sending a shiver up my spine, through my fingers that had not clutched in return. The drawer beside the sink caught my eye, its presence stirring a sense of intrigue within me. He pried it open. My fingers glided over the delicate lace. Crimson, gentle, woven with strands of gold. It wasn't the sort of attire I donned for my husband. I shut the drawer with a decisive thud, slipped back beneath the covers, surrendering to the embrace of the night once more. He lay in a deep slumber, one arm draped over his face, his breath slow and steady, enveloped in the stillness of the night. I settled beside him, the room faintly lit of the room. Stillness enveloped the air. My skin tingled with an electric anticipation, not after the chaos that had just unfolded, yet from what remained unspoken. In the dimly lit room down the hall, a numb man tossed and turned, unable to escape the grip of his restless thoughts. I felt it, that unmistakable sensation, like the prickling awareness of a gaze lingering on me from the other side of the street. Even when your gaze wanders elsewhere. I tugged the blanket up, seeking its warmth like a shield against the encroaching chill, clamped my thighs tightly together. He lay in the darkness, yearning for the embrace of sleep, fully aware that it would elude him once more. The following morning, a dense weight hung in the air of the house, as if the very walls had soaked up all the unspoken words between us. My husband slipped away before dawn. Gatherings that hold the weight of decisions, where voices clash and ideas ignite, shaping the very fabric of our reality. A matter of utmost urgency. He pressed his lips to my cheek, a fleeting warmth before he turned to leave, calling me babe as if those words held a deeper significance. I nodded, waved, and watched as he stepped away. I closed the door behind him, lingering in the silence that followed, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. The silence on the other side descended like a heavy fog, enveloping everything in its suffocating grip. With a deliberate slowness, as if performing a sacred rite, I pivoted and stepped into the kitchen. He stood there, a figure of casual defiance, leaning against the counter, barefoot, his shirt a chaotic rumple, sleeves haphazardly rolled up. His expression held no hint of surprise at my arrival. He didn't feign ignorance of the weight that had consumed him. Silence enveloped him, a heavy shroud that spoke volumes without a single word escaping his lips. He was under no obligation to do so. A new kind of stillness enveloped us, thick and palpable, as if the air itself held its breath. Resolved and unwavering, fear had slipped away, leaving only boldness in its wake. The silence enveloped everything, granting an unspoken freedom. I brushed past him, my heart racing as I reached for the kettle, the cool metal sending a shiver through my fingertips. My hand quivered ever so slightly as I turned the knob, a subtle tremor that went unnoticed by the world, yet resonated deeply within me. As he leaned over to grab a mug, I felt the fleeting warmth of his chest graze my shoulder, sending a shiver down my spine. It was merely a whisper in the shadows. It was everything one could ever desire. I'm leaving," he said, the weight of his words hanging in the air after a long, tense pause. I stood motionless. Next week, the phone rang, and it was my dad on the line. He urges me to begin the internship ahead of schedule. He spoke with a stark clarity, as if delivering a forecast, yet his gaze was locked onto mine, charged with unspoken intensity, steadfast. I cast my gaze downward, pretending to be captivated by the bubbling water. "I never anticipated you would linger for eternity," I remarked, my voice steady yet betraying an undercurrent of emotion. "I know," he replied, his voice steady yet laced with an unspoken weight. The silence that enveloped the room was thick and charged, a stark contrast to the quiet that had come before. It cut deeper, a heightened awareness, as if two souls stood on the precipice, recognizing the conclusion of an unspoken chapter that had never truly been defined. I placed the kettle down, my hand instinctively grasping a spoon that served no purpose, as I braced myself for what lay ahead. I had foreseen this moment, I whispered to myself. What is happening? That my desires would hold no weight. Silence hung in the air, thick and charged, as his gaze bore into me, unyielding and intense. The evening unfolded like countless others, yet an unseen tension lingered in the air. Our paths barely intersected. I scrubbed clothes that were already clean, meticulously organized the medicine cabinet, and mindlessly scrolled through an infinite stream of emptiness on my phone, all the while forcing myself to ignore the fact that he hadn't yet made his way downstairs. As the clock struck midnight, I ventured into the shadowy expanse of the backyard. The air whispered around, cool and soft, wrapping itself around everything like a gentle embrace. The sky loomed above, like a vast, ink-blue canvas, devoid of stars, shrouded in an unsettling darkness. I stood by the garden fence, arms crossed, head tilted back, struggling to find calm amidst the chaos swirling within me. He emerged from the darkness, a phantom conjured by my very thoughts. "Rest eluded you?" he inquired, his voice laced with curiosity. Failed to make an attempt. He approached, deliberate and steady, neither hurried nor uncertain. "Just a heartbeat away. You don't want me to leave," he murmured, his voice thick with unspoken emotions. It was a statement unyielding and absolute. I shifted my gaze toward him, curiosity igniting within me. The porch light cast shadows across his face, sharpening his features into stark relief. His face betrayed a serene facade, yet the tension in his jaw hinted at the storm brewing within. "I don't know what I want," I confessed, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. "Your desire for this is undeniable." Our hands accidentally touched. A fleeting moment through the air. Only this once. Only the bare minimum. I remained right there, unyielding. In an instant, we were on the move once more, neither hurried nor concealed. As we moved through the house, an eerie hush enveloped us, the living room looming silently in the shadows. The hallway light flickered ominously, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. The shadows danced around us, pulsating in rhythm with our breaths. We arrived at the stairs, hesitating for a moment. The air between us crackled with tension. We ascended in silence, each step measured to avoid the telltale groan of the old floorboards beneath us. The door shut behind us with a soft click, a sound that echoed in the stillness, reverberating in the air like a warning bell. This time, we plunged forward without a moment's doubt. He kissed me with a fervor that spoke of certainty, as if he understood that I was finally here to stay, as if the weight of his longing had reached its breaking point. Their intimacy unfolded with unspoken tension. Memories surged back, vivid and unrelenting. I let him go. Reluctance gripped me, a heavy weight in my chest. I found myself standing at the precipice of a decision I dreaded. Yet, I did retreat. Just a whisper, just enough to catch a glimpse of him. "You're going," I whispered, the words hanging in the air like a fragile promise. "Indeed." His lips met mine once more, igniting a spark that sent shivers down my spine. "Take your time, then let it linger, as if we're caught in a moment that refuses to end." And he never did. We lingered in his room, the night wrapping around us like a shroud, until the windows glimmered with the first light of dawn, until the world beyond began to stir from its slumber, until I was forced to revert to the version of myself that could whip up breakfast and flash a smile on cue. As I quietly slipped out of his bed, I noticed he was already awake, lying on his side, his gaze fixed on me with that same enigmatic expression that sent shivers down my spine. Filled with shame, acquitted, right at that moment, completely. I hesitated at the threshold. He never uttered the words that would bind me to him, leaving the air thick with unspoken possibilities. He was under no obligation to do so. The truth lingered between us, palpable and heavy, like the very air we breathed. Things would never be the same after that night in the matter. The hours that followed that fateful night crawled onward, burdened by an unseen weight, each moment stretching into eternity. The morning light slinked through the blinds of my bedroom, casting its familiar glow over the unchanged furniture, the soft cream-colored walls, and the framed photo perched above the dresser. An image I hadn't truly seen in years, yet it lingered like a ghost in the corners of my mind. As I quietly returned to bed, my husband lay peacefully asleep, his breathing a gentle rhythm in the stillness of the night. The back of his hand rested near my hip, a seemingly chance encounter that sent a shiver of warmth through me. I averted my gaze from him, fixating on the seam of the pillowcase, until it dissolved into a haze of indistinctness. Silence enveloped me that morning. I glided through the house like a whisper, felt but barely seen. With a robotic efficiency, I folded the laundry, each crease sharp and exact. I poured juice into glasses that remained untouched, the vibrant liquid glistening in the light. I wiped down surfaces that sparkled with cleanliness, my hands moving in a rhythm that felt both familiar and unsettling. My husband remarked on the shifting weather, the latest headlines, and the dwindling supply of paper towels in our kitchen. I nodded at all the appropriate moments, yet my thoughts spiraled back into the shadows of the previous night. The memory of his breath, gradually slowing against my shoulder, lingered in my mind, as if the world beyond the room had faded into an ethereal haze, rendered utterly irrelevant. In a fleeting instant, perhaps only a heartbeat, my mind fell silent, suspended in a void of thoughtlessness. No calculations, no consequences. Only the electric sensation of his hands on my back. The way he whispered my name, as if it were his own, intimate and unclaimed. Now, under the stark glare of daylight, there was no room for such raw honesty. He evaded my presence, not overtly, not with malice, but with a subtle precision that felt far too deliberate to be mere chance. He lingered in his room, extending his solitude, taking phone calls outside, as if the walls could not contain him. He dined at odd hours, yet his essence hung in the air, a ghostly trace that permeated the house like the fading wisps of smoke from a candle, snuffed out in the dark. An electric tension hung in the air each time I stepped into a room, a lingering presence that whispered of his recent departure, as if he had never truly left at all. The house lay shrouded in an eerie silence by 11. My husband's slumber was a profound abyss, impenetrable and unaware, as it always was. As I lay on my side, my gaze fixed on the ceiling, I found myself counting the seconds that stretched between the rare sounds of distant cars gliding by outside. My limbs throbbed, not from fatigue, but from the tight grip of restraint. The sensation lingered, an echo of his skin against mine, not in the tangible sense, but deep within. A haunting memory woven into the very fabric of my nerves and breath. As the clock struck 1 in the morning, I finally surrendered. With a quiet grace, I slipped out of bed, mindful of the delicate sheets that clung to the night's secrets. My bare feet whispered against the cool floor as I ventured into the shadowy hallway, the air thick with anticipation. The floor sent a chill through my feet, and the only illumination was the narrow beam spilling from beneath his door. I paused at the threshold. I stepped inside without a sound. I stood at the threshold, heart pounding, but I didn't step inside. I lingered in the silence, my ears straining to catch every faint sound that danced through the air. Silence enveloped the space, thick and suffocating. Silence hung in the air, a stillness that felt almost palpable. It was merely a line of gold light, yet it cast an unsettling aura, making the world around it feel more delicate than it ought to be. With a heavy heart, I turned away. I turned on my heel and made my way back to the kitchen, the air thick with anticipation. I filled a glass with water, yet it remained untouched. In the dim light, I sat at the table, one hand pressed against the cool wood, the other cradling the glass, as if its weight could anchor my swirling thoughts into something tangible. In that profound silence, time twisted and warped, slipping through the fingers like grains of sand. At last, the sound of footsteps echoed through the silence, unhurried, fearless, simply ponder. He stepped into the kitchen, bare-chested and unshod, his hair tousled from the remnants of sleep. His gaze locked onto mine in an electrifying instant, and for a heartbeat, the world around us faded away, leaving us suspended in a breathless stillness. He crossed the room with deliberate slowness, each step heavy with intent, before settling into the chair across from me. The table between us loomed like an impenetrable barrier, a stark divide that separated our worlds. Silence enveloped us. My gaze fell upon the bracelet encircling my wrist. It lingers, a presence that refuses to fade. It was still wrong. In just 2 days, he whispered, I will be gone. I nodded, the weight of the moment settling around me like a thick fog. I knew it all along. Will you really say goodbye? Uncertainty hung in the air, a heavy fog that clouded the mind. The answer eluded grasp, slipping away like shadows at dusk. I responded. He leaned forward, his elbows pressing against the table, hands tightly clasped in anticipation. The small scar near his wrist caught my eye, a silent testament to past struggles, while his knuckles tightened, betraying the effort it took to restrain himself. His expression was a mask, concealing the tempest within. It was not cold. Hard as stone, on high alert, now. I never intended for any of this to happen, I confessed. Nor did I. In the stillness that enveloped us, an unspoken truth lingered, raw and undeniable. It contained all the words we had left unspoken, all that we were unable to achieve. The dread, a deep yearning filled the air. The realization that a fracture had occurred, one that neither of us could mend. I rose to my feet, breaking the stillness that enveloped the room. He remained behind. As I passed him, his hand shot out, grazing the fabric of my sleeve for just a heartbeat before falling away. A question posed, then snatched back into silence. In the solitude of my room, I peeled away my layers with deliberate slowness. With meticulous precision, each garment was folded, as if the act of gentleness might somehow reverse the past's irrevocable choices. As I gazed into the mirror, my reflection held me captive. My body appeared unchanged, yet it was not what it seemed. Not to me. As I slipped into a fresh set of pajamas, the soft fabric enveloped me like a comforting embrace, signaling the end of the day's chaos and the beginning of a tranquil night. I pulled my hair back, securing it tightly, ready for whatever lay ahead. With a steady hand, I reached for the toothbrush, the bristles glistening under the bathroom light. As I squeezed the toothpaste onto it, the minty aroma filled the air, awakening my senses. I began to scrub, the rhythmic motion a familiar dance, as the cool paste foamed and bubbled, transforming the mundane act into a moment of executed the routine, with the precision of a sacred ritual. As I settled back down next to my husband, he stirred ever so slightly, a whisper of movement in the stillness of the night. He shifted closer to me in his sleep, his arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me closer into his embrace, known yet enigmatic, radiant, weighty. As I shut my eyes, the world around me faded into darkness, yet my thoughts lingered in the kitchen. Facing a person who held the secrets of a side of me that remained hidden from the world. Sunday crept in quietly, shrouded in an air of anticipation. The sky hung low, a blanket of soft, muted gray that enveloped the world below, a swirling watercolor of indecision, reflecting the tumult of emotions I desperately tried to suppress. The streets outside lay shrouded in an eerie silence. The city lay hushed, as if it too felt the tremor of change in the atmosphere. I glided through the house as if I were a ghost, my fingers brushing against familiar objects with a chilling sense of detachment, each touch a reminder of the fleeting moments I had left. The walls held secrets untold. The rooms had been steeped in an oppressive silence this week, each corner echoing with unspoken tension that refused to remain neutral. As I walked past his door, I caught a glimpse of him hurriedly packing, the tension in the air palpable. I pressed on, unwavering in my resolve. Silence enveloped me, yet the gentle sound of the suitcase being zipped echoed in the stillness. The soft shuffle of shoes, sliding into their resting place, echoed in the silence. The stillness of motion held a weight that felt destined to last forever. It felt like a dream, a fleeting whisper of reality slipping through my fingers. Not the kind of reality you prepare yourself to face. It was as if I were a spectator to a conclusion that belonged to another, a distant tale unfolding before my eyes. My husband had orchestrated a walk, a simple outing that held the promise of adventure, a fleeting encounter. It was an act we had long abandoned, a thrill we hadn't tasted in months. He referred to it as a reset, a moment poised on the edge of transformation. We promised to meet for coffee, perhaps linger by the lake for a while. His voice rang out with an unsettling cheerfulness, perhaps a touch too optimistic. It was as if he felt an unseen disturbance, an instinct gnawing at him, compelling him to mend what he could not fully grasp, wielding tools that had long since lost their purpose. We strolled through the park, each step deliberate as the leaves transformed around us, their edges crisp and ablaze with shades of orange. The grass remained summer-soft beneath my feet, yet the air had shifted, carrying whispers of change. He delved into the intricacies of retirement options. The time had come to transform the bedroom, to breathe new life into its walls, and create a sanctuary of color and comfort. We should embark on an adventure soon. I gave a subtle nod, the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. As I navigated the conversation, my words flowed seamlessly, yet with each step, my thoughts wandered into the shadows, far from the moment at hand. Somewhere along the winding path, he reached for my hand, not as if they were unfamiliar, not in the way a lover would, like a man clinging to a fragile memory, uncertain if it still belonged to him. I felt the weight of distraction pulling me away from what truly matters. He spoke. Labor. The weight of the world pressed down, a relentless force that twisted and turned within, leaving no room for escape. But I can't bear the thought of losing what we have. His words struck me like a bolt from the blue, not due to what they contained, but rather when they were delivered. At long last, the moment had arrived. In the wake of countless small slips and the haunting echoes of overlooked pauses, at last he had uttered words that transcended the mundane chatter of groceries and the flickering garden light. Silence hung in the air as I hesitated, my mind racing with unspoken thoughts. A shadow of distraction has crept into my thoughts as well, I declared. His fingers wrapped around mine with a tender pressure, a silent promise lingering in the air between us. We can rise from the ashes. Should we both dare to try? My gaze locked onto him, gazed intently, and I was convinced he truly meant it. He was determined to mend what he believed was shattered, yet he remained unaware, not at all, not entirely, yet uncertainty gnawed at me, leaving me questioning whether I truly desired its restoration, or if I even had the power to do so. We lingered on a bench by the shimmering water's edge. The surface lay like a sheet of glass, mirroring the sky above, poised in a tense stillness, as if anticipating the moment it would be shattered. Ducks glided effortlessly through the shimmering shallows, their movements slow and serene, while the joyful sound of a child's laughter echoed nearby, weaving a tapestry of innocence and tranquility in the air. Everything felt so ordinary, exquisitely achingly ordinary, and I felt the urge to scream, a primal cry clawing at my throat. Upon returning home, I made my way directly to the bedroom. He shut the door behind him, sealing off the world outside. I sat on the edge of the bed, my gaze fixed on the suitcase that had remained untouched for years, a silent witness to the passage of time. Nothing was packed. I left no letter behind. Time stretched endlessly as I lingered in anticipation. As I stepped outside, I noticed his car waiting ominously in the driveway. He leaned against the side, arms crossed, sunglasses resting atop his head, exuding an air of cool confidence. Not a suitcase in sight. No expression crossed their face, leaving me in a shroud of uncertainty. "I believed you would want to bid farewell," he spoke. Doubt gnawed at me, leaving me uncertain of my next move. Doubt gnawed at me, a relentless whisper urging me to stay, to listen for your voice just once more before I stepped into the unknown. We lingered in a heavy silence, the air thick with unspoken words. He chose to linger, though I never invited him to do so. His return was never something I desired. I remained silent, not daring to utter a single question. Just as he was about to swing the car door open, he took a step back, reached into his back pocket, and revealed a mysterious object, holding it out with a sense of purpose, a tiny envelope, its edges worn and secrets tucked within, unmarked. "Illumination, set aside for the future," he spoke. "When the masks fall away." In that electrifying moment, his lips met mine. Not on the lips, upon the cheek, and it shattered me more than anything else ever could. He slipped into the car, the engine roared to life, and with a swift motion, he reversed out of the driveway, not sparing a single glance behind him. I stood there, my gaze fixed on him as he drove away, the vehicle gradually swallowed by the shadows of the trees. It was only at that moment that I dared to peel open the envelope. Within the confines lay a photograph, its edges worn and secrets waiting to be uncovered, a relic from the past. Captured by the shimmering waters of the lake, it slipped from my memory, yet here I stood, confronted by the undeniable truth. Echoes of laughter filled the air. Strands of hair fell across my face. Sunlight danced across my collarbone, and in the shadowy corner of the frame, almost lost to sight, he lingered there as well, gazing intently at me. Hidden away behind the photo lay a note, its presence shrouded in mystery. Only 5 words. Your energy brightened the room. I held back the tears. Not at that moment. I stepped back into the house, the air thick with memories and shadows that whispered secrets of the past. With a decisive push, the door swung shut behind them, sealing off the world outside. For the first time in weeks, I found myself alone in my room, the silence wrapping around me like a heavy cloak, unveiling the truth, refusing to wait, unmasked and raw, silently waiting, awake,